and then I closed my eyes, went into unconsciousness. And when I closed my eyes, I opened them, and there was no tunnel of light. There was no people calling me to them or anything like that. I closed my eyes, I opened them, and I was in this beautiful garden with loved ones.
Amber, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's start with you sharing your experience.
So I had a massive stroke 3 years ago, Christmas 2021. Essentially went to the other side, long story short, and got to choose whether or not I wanted to come back. Before that, though, I was a psychic medium. I was born this way, and I had been practicing as a psychic medium, accepted my gifts in 2015, started working as a psychic medium 2016. So I already had some faith that there was something other than this life. I was very religious when I was younger, so I still kind of had a more religious view of it. And so I don't know, I think a lot of people who have NDEs, it's, that's what gives them faith. That's where they kind of go, oh, okay, we aren't just humans living a human existence. There's something more. But I already had faith, I think. But yeah, so when was it? December 1st, I think, or 22nd, I went to bed with a very, very bad headache. I now know it's called, I think, like a thunderclap headache. It's when you're having a stroke, when your brain is bleeding, not always, you can get this extreme headache. And so we had been doing Christmas things all day, and I got this horrible headache. And I'm like, guys, I gotta go to bed. We were watching a Christmas movie, and I went to bed. And I guess an hour and a half later, I texted my husband and I said, my head hurts so bad. Can you bring me some Tylenol and some Advil? And he did. I don't remember that. And I guess I fell asleep. They say fell into unconsciousness. And I didn't wake up for about 5 hours. Anybody who knows strokes knows there's that sweet spot where you can treat it. I think it's 3 to 4 hours. If you catch it in that time, a lot of the time, everything is reversible. So they treated me like that. I went to the hospital. They gave me a medication to reverse the stroke. And it didn't work because I guess I had the stroke probably right when I fell asleep. My carotid dissected. So that's that headache. Because it didn't work, they needed to life flight me to a different hospital because my hospital, you can't get brain surgery there. They have a neurologist, but they don't have a neurosurgeon. So all of my family came. It was 6 o'clock in the morning to say goodbye. My kids at the time were 12 and 14. So they had to come the day before Christmas and say goodbye because they said I probably wouldn't make the flight. I more than likely wouldn't survive. They had done some scans and it turns out I had had a completed stroke. So that means it goes all the way through the vessel it affects and there's nothing you can reverse. And because I didn't wake up, it caused a second stroke in my frontal lobe. So I'm missing all of this part of my brain and a lot of this part of my brain. And so I got on the life flight. They let my husband come with me and they don't normally do that, but they thought I was going to die and they didn't want me to die alone on Christmas. And when I was in the helicopter, the sun was hitting my face and my husband tried to block it because I was looking strange and looking really hot because when you're dying, apparently you can't get super hot before. I tried to push him away, but I was completely paralyzed on the right side. I didn't even have a shadow of movement. And I wanted him to stop because when that sun hit my face, I just got this feeling over all of my body. And so I guess looked irritated. And then I closed my eyes, went into unconsciousness. And when I closed my eyes, I opened them and there was no tunnel of light. There was no people calling me to them or anything like that. I closed my eyes, I opened them, and I was in this beautiful garden with loved ones. Yes, although I didn't walk up to them, my guides, some of my animals who have crossed over, which was nice to see. And one of my animals who was not dead, but she was there. And I didn't realize after, I just assumed she was very old. She was 17 when I had the stroke and I'd had her whole life. She actually died 4 days after the stroke. So it's like because she had dementia, which I've seen in human dementia patients, they're kind of in between the two dimensions. So, I think all of us have heard an older person say, oh, so-and-so was here today, or I went to work today. Oh, I saw your mother today, but she died, 10 years ago, something like that. It's because dementia is scary, and we get the gift of kind of becoming gifted to see the other side. So it's not quite as scary. So yeah, that dog was there. And then there was a whole group of people that I didn't necessarily know in this life, but I knew them. And I figured out that they were all my other lives. So it was a giant group of people. And essentially, yeah, I got to kind of it felt like 50 years. It wasn't, it was minutes, but like in human time. And I got to decide whether or not I wanted to come back. And it sounds like, well, that's an easy choice. Like, you have kids, you have a husband, you have to go back. It's not that simple. That's our home. And this is a difficult school. And, we love coming here, but because when you get to the other side, there is no why. There's no who, what, when, where, why, how, because you know every answer to every question, and time doesn't exist. So I was able to be shown my future if I came back, and my family's future if I came back, and what would happen if I didn't, and how my family would be, how my kids would be. And it's very almost objective. I didn't feel sad that my kids were sad. I could see all of my family, and obviously they were desperate for me to survive. They were all bargaining with God. They were all, even though they're not religious, but it wasn't like how I would feel now alive if my kids were upset, or my husband, or my family. And my guides kind of just guided me through and helped me come to the decision of whether or not I wanted to come back.
What was the deciding factor for you to come back?
I think I just knew it. I feel bad, but it wasn't my family. And that sounds bad, but I knew no matter what, my family was going to be okay, and that they chose this life too. We plan these lives, right? And so we would have had to choose together both outcomes, just in case I made a different decision. It was because I had so much more to learn and to teach. And I think that part was a huge deciding factor. If I didn't come back, there was going to be quite a long time before somebody like me and my experience would be born. And it was just kind of like a balance thing. Okay, is it worth it to not have me there helping to provide hope to a lot of people? And also it was, not fun to see what would happen with my family. Poor husband, but he would have started drinking, and my daughter would have had to be the parent, and it would change her life. And my son also would have not kind of fared well. But again, you're kind of removed, because it's yes, okay, I can see that. But then that means that's what they were supposed to learn. And as I was sort of, everything's telepathic. So I didn't say one word while I was there. I didn't have to walk up to my family and hug them, because you could feel love emanating through the ground, through the grass. And I went between putting my feet in the grass to going, there was a little stream, and standing in the stream, and then walking to my guides and doing that. It literally felt, there was no pressure. There was no, come on, you got to make this decision. You need to go back. There was nothing like that, because time didn't exist. And so I just got to kind of sit and contemplate and be able to see everything I would do if I came back, and everything I would struggle with. And they said the first 6 months especially, but the first 18 months will be the hardest time of your life. And I haven't had an easy life. And they said, you will think you made a mistake, and you will want to go to the other side. And that was 100% true. I woke up feeling like I was I was still paralyzed on my right side, not even a shadow of movement. I was nonverbal. I couldn't talk. I had 2 words, and that's it. And I had to relearn everything. But when I did say, okay, I want to go back, I didn't go back into my body right away, because at that moment, my body was having a grand mal seizure because of the brain swelling. And so I said I wanted to go back and again, close my eyes, open them again. And I was in like, I call it like a light-filled waiting room. You know, when you hear stories of people like in surgery and they're like hovering above their bodies, that sort of stuff, or, you know, getting in an accident and they're kind of looking from above. I was there. So I wasn't in my body. I didn't want to feel the pain of the seizure. But the second it was over, which was kind of a while, it took a bit for them to get the medication and get me to stop seizing because I didn't on my own. Again, closed my eyes. I was back in my body with no awareness. So like I was unconscious for a couple of days. And it wasn't like on the other side. I had no idea what was going on around me. I didn't wake up or anything like that.
When you were on the other side, you mentioned your feet. Were you in your human body?
Yeah. And I was barefoot. I was in my human body, but like my 25-year-old human body. So no flaws at all, no pain, no scars, wrinkles. And I was wearing like this beautiful white kind of off the shoulder eyelet dress. And I was like the best version of myself times a million. So I still looked like myself, but better, like almost like imperfect. Whereas here, you know, it's heavy in these human bodies. They're not at all.
Was everyone that version of themselves? Like the best, were the dogs the best version?
Yeah. And like the 17-year-old didn't look, she looked like a puppy again. My two grandmas looked still like grandmas, I think, just because that's what I needed to see, but like not how they looked before they died. One had died of cancer and one of old age, but you know, they start to look like they're dying, and they didn't look like that, but they did look like the grandma I remember when I was super young. So still full of life, but definitely not like 25, how I felt like I looked 20 to 25.
When you came back and you said that you were unconscious in your body for a few days, was it just darkness or just complete unawareness?
I have no conscious memory at all of any of that time. And when I first woke up, so I flew, got there, they realized the damage was too significant for brain surgery. Like they gave my husband the choice, and poor husband, like that's such a horrible choice to make because he knew nothing about any of this stuff. And the neurosurgeon, who had been a neurosurgeon for 25 years plus, said, I need you to make the choice. You know, like we can try and do the brain surgery, but I do think it will kill her. The damage is too significant. She's not going to get better. She's not going to talk, walk, eat, any of that. It's better to, if she survives, just get her in like long-term care, that sort of stuff, or risk killing her. And so my husband had no idea what to do. And so he said, like, if this was your wife, what would you do? And the surgeon said, I wouldn't do it. And so my husband didn't do it. And so we were just they were waiting to see if I would wake up or not. And that time, I don't remember it. I don't remember the seizure. And apparently I continued to have seizures when I was in the ICU. I don't remember any of that. I don't really have any conscious memories until like Christmas Day, maybe, which was a couple of days later.
And you said you were a psychic medium beforehand, about 6 years beforehand. 2 questions. Yeah. What all were your gifts? Are they the same now? And were you 100% in it then, how you are now?
I am a medium, which means I can talk to people who have crossed over. I'm an empath, but times a million. So I can see, feel, hear, and sense things other people can't. I can feel everybody's feelings always if I want to, which if I'm not working, I kind of have a boundary where I don't. I am what I call spiritually intuitive. Others may say psychic. So spirit can show me memories of the past or the future if it's going to mean or validate something for somebody. I'm a medical intuitive and a healer and also an animal communicator, which I think is fun. And I kind of do it on the side. And so I would say when I first came back, I felt very disconnected. I felt almost like on a high with everything because I was still connected to the other side. And like my family was talking around me and saying all these things and I couldn't talk, but I just looked quite happy until I didn't. I hit a wall and then everything came crashing down and I was so in my physical body that I was absolutely miserable. Once I started getting better and feeling like myself again, I also was on a lot of medication because of the seizures. And so that made me feel horrible. And it's hard to do, I think, spiritual work if you're on really strong amounts of medication. But once I was back in it, it's like 100 times easier. I get more tired because I'm very brain injured, but how everything was telepathic on the other side, I can't do that with humans, but I now can do that with anyone on the other side. So like when I was working before, a guide or a loved one would talk, I would listen and then repeat. And so sometimes stuff gets lost in translation, or I interpret it different than they meant. Now their thoughts become my words. So I don't even have to think about it. I don't have to worry that I'm saying it wrong. Once in a while, if they're saying something or thinking something and I'm like, I don't want to say that. Like, I don't think that's helpful. Then we'll have a back and forth. But no, most of the time it's just their thoughts become my words, and it's so simple and so much more easy.
Do you think the stroke happened because we plan everything. Yeah. We forget when we're here that we plan everything. So do you believe that the stroke happened to bring you fully into your gifts and make them easier to help people?
Yes. And I think even kind of to push me forward, before I accepted my gifts, I was a very like type A kind of dance mom, soccer mom. Like I worked in social work and mental health and addictions, and I didn't like to ruffle feathers. And I didn't like being gifted. I hated it when I was young. My life was so hard. I felt like I was crazy, and mental illness runs in my family. So I just thought people would think I was nuts. I also would have, because I didn't know how to set boundaries. So I would have like psychic visions or dreams of horrible things, plane crashes, animal attacks, murders, and then they would happen. And I thought I was causing it. Like there was something wrong with me when I was young. It's like I dreamt that a whole bunch of people were going to die on a plane. And then a week later I see it on the news and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm doing this. Like it was so awful. And so, yeah, I didn't want to be like that. And even before the stroke, like I loved what I did. I had a very my little corner of social media where I didn't have a lot of followers, but I did like live videos. I did my private readings and groups and stuff, and I loved it, but I didn't want to do anything else. And no matter what my guides did, they couldn't convince me to do all the things they wanted me to do. And the stroke just made me so grateful, and grateful that they were so patient with me when I was kind of saying, no, I don't want to. And even still, I still sometimes go, no, you know what? I don't want to do that.
So you now can choose when you turn it on and off still?
Yes, but most of the time I don't like to turn it off like I used to. Like I used to have and I still do, I call them my no-go zones. So like if I'm at my kid's school or like at the bank or the grocery store, it's not helpful to me to see everybody's stuff, right? Now it's so much easier to process it. The only time that I have a really, really hard time with needing to turn it off is being around people, I say like whose insides don't match their outsides. So if somebody is like, my life is so great and, I'm doing all these things, but inside they're like dying, or maybe they're having a really hard time at home or something, it's very hard for me to respond to what they're saying as opposed to how they're feeling. So I really try to not because it's not, I don't have the right to be in people's heads. And if somebody doesn't want to tell me something because maybe they're working on whatever, they just, for any reason at all, it's not my right to kind of dissect or look at them and go, oh, you know what's actually happening? Because that's not. And so, yeah, I certain times will still turn it off, but I don't feel I need to as much anymore. And I don't have the fear that people will think I'm crazy. That went away with the NDE because, if they do, then that is their thing in this life. It's not my job to give anybody or make anybody have faith. And there's nothing wrong with how anybody lives. So just, I probably have lived a life where I didn't believe in the type of stuff I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And one journey is no better than another. Just because I went to the other side doesn't mean my way of being. And, there is a chance maybe I made it all up. They do say brains can do weird things when they're dying. So how can I force that on somebody? So it has definitely changed how I approach my work. And I don't, like before, it almost felt like an obligation rather than a gift. Like, okay, I accepted my gifts. And so now I have to do these things. Now I'm so joyful to be able to live this life, even with like the deficits I have and the disabilities I now have due to the stroke.
Has there been a situation where you felt, I know you said you don't like to invade people's privacy if they don't want you to, but has there been a situation where you just have to tell the person what? Yeah.
Yep. And I try now to listen to those things. So how I work spiritually is I don't want to know things if I can't stop, change, or help them. So I'm not one of the psychics who will give the predictions for 2025, because once I know it, then I got to worry about it. And everybody else most of the time will forget about it or go, whatever, it's probably not true. So I don't want to know, if somebody's going to die, I don't want to know unless I can stop it. If somebody's going to get cancer, and there's nothing like going early will not help or anything like that, I don't want to know it. But certain things, if it's something preventable, I will. So like my dad is in his 80s and him and my mom were going to do something. I'm like, you know what, actually, can you guys not go to this certain place? Because if you do, dad's going to fall and break a hip. And that could be like because he's old. Or we were trying to plan a trip for spring break. And last year we went to Mexico and it was wonderful and I loved it. And we were going to go to Disney, but with all the fires, I was like, that feels like a kind of a jerk move to go there. And so we were planning Mexico and I just got this impending like sense of dread. Like if we go, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to be. So we didn't book it. We're doing another trip instead. If it's something, because when we plan our lives, we have infinite free will. But our souls and our higher self go, okay, like she's probably going to go this way. So that's what they're basing it on. But sometimes we go a completely different way, right? So there always is a chance to not do something or not learn something. And for me personally, I feel like I've kind of learned enough in the last few years. Like I don't want to go somewhere and then when I get sick or one of the kids get sick, or maybe that flight is the one that will give me another stroke, right? So we get to choose the lessons, kind of. And because I can kind of tap in a little bit, sometimes I don't want those big lessons all the time.
So I know we plan our lives and we have multiple lives. And sometimes in life, we're not a good person, whatever that means. Do we all go to the same place? Because, like some people believe in heaven or hell and all of those things. I believe we're all the same. We all go to the same place and we're like a collective. But what do you believe on that side? I believe
the same as you. So essentially, when we plan our lives or when our higher self on the other side, I have an analogy. It's like a rain cloud. So like your higher self is always on the other side. There's a piece of you always there. And then see it as a rain cloud. All your lives are like raindrops, right? So they come here, they learn, they grow, and then they go back up to your higher self. So let's just say there is a horrible, as a human, sometimes I do wish there was a hell. There's certain types of people that I feel like should be like eternally punished. But the punishment reward sort of judgment system, it's a human construct. It doesn't exist on the other side. And so when you look at the big picture and your higher self is always there, a little piece of you is in this life. Do you punish the entire rain cloud? Because you can't take one piece of the soul and put that piece in hell while all the other ones are in heaven, right? So you can't punish the collective soul because one tiny part did something that was horrible. So it doesn't mean we don't sort of think about or learn from lives when we get there. So we all do a life review when we get there before we're back kind of in the collective. And you do get to, I don't want to say have to, because we do choose this. We get to sort of see our entire life, everything we did, but not just from our perspective. We get to see from everyone else's perspective that we affected. So like, if you, I don't know, got in an argument with a friend and you were in a bad mood and you said something super mean and you walked away going, yes, I won that argument, and then realized, oh, that was kind of jerky, and you apologized, you then get to see maybe that thing you said actually really affected that person and they carried it with them their entire lives. Or maybe you had made a comment about something and then they have an insecurity about that. So you get to see all of it and learn from all of it. The people often that we feel should go to hell are so bad and people get really mad, but they are older souls because none of us could plan a life because they're not learning. Like, I don't know, a serial killer, they are not learning anything at all. They are teaching so much and they continue to teach after they die. So, they might go to the other side going, okay, I don't think that was pretty crappy, all those things I did. But for generations, everybody affected by that person will continue to learn, continue to be forced to have faith and understand and question our existence and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's no hell, but there is, we do get to ponder or think of the things we go through in our lives.
Someone knowing that they're going to experience death in the future, like soon, or someone that lost a loved one recently, not doing so great with it. With your experience, what is your advice to those people?
Honestly, that they haven't gone anywhere. So it has changed because you can't see them anymore, but you can still talk to them. They hear everything you say and they are okay. A lot of people worry, like, what if they're lonely or in pain? Were they scared? And we replay the negative things. It's why a lot of people want to die alone. They wait till people leave the room because they don't want their loved ones to only remember that. And so they're always, not only are they okay, they are with you. The higher you is with them. So they're not, especially people who have lost children or, babies or that sort of stuff. Like, oh no, are they're alone suffering? Never, 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 never. They are completely surrounded in love, including with you. And they know everything you're going through and will always be with you until you go back to the other side to be with them. We also come in groups. So I call it our soul family. And so we live many, many lives with the same souls. And yes, other souls join, sometimes leave or go into different areas, dimensions, that sort of stuff. But, this life with that person is not the last or the first time you've been with that person. So you will see them again. You more than likely will be able to live a life with them again, and everything will make sense once you get to the other side.
Do you think our loved ones or deceased people in general can communicate through dreams?
Yeah. Yes, but most of the time they don't talk. So there's a difference between a visitation and a dream. When it's a dream, they seem just like they were and they can talk to you, you can hug them, or maybe you do something you used to do, or maybe you're sitting and having a family meal, that sort of stuff. That's a dream and that's still wonderful. But a visitation is you're dreaming and the person is there and you want to talk to them and hug them, but every time you try to go towards them, they either back up or disappear, or you try to hug them and you can't get to them. You try to talk to them and they don't talk back. It's because the different kind of energetic vibrations, it's hard on a lot of people, especially if, they don't have gifts or whatever. It can cause a lot of anxiety. It can make you not be able to sleep, all that sort of stuff. And they never want to do harm, but they want to visit even if, they can't necessarily talk to you. They also can do other things to show, like they can send you signs. A lot of the time, like when I first accepted my gifts, it almost existed in my peripheral. So they would be like kind of to the side and behind me. And so sometimes they will walk by and you'll just kind of catch a glimpse like, oh, what was that? Is there somebody there? I'm home alone. They'll try to make their presence known. Also can make you, it's kind of like superimposing their face on somebody in public. So like they can make somebody look like them for a very brief amount of time when they're wanting to tell you they're there, or if you're having a really difficult time in your life and they want to kind of give some comfort. And then like you look and it's like, oh my gosh, that's so-and-so. And then you look and they look nothing like, and you're like, am I crazy? What's going on? So there's lots of ways they can sort of help you to know that they're there. You don't need people like me at all to be able to connect.
So you were kind of aware that you were possibly not going to live past the plane ride. If someone had died unexpectedly, would it be a little bit more confusing on their end once they did cross over?
Once you're there, not at all. The second you're there, there's no questioning. It's not like, oh, what the heck? Like, how'd I get here? Once in a while, there's like a little bit of a, whoa, well, that was weird. I guess this is what I'm doing now. But no, as soon as you are not in this human body, everything makes sense. There's no questions. It's not scary, nothing like that. And a lot of times, so like when certain people are dying, sometimes we choose to stay in our bodies for the process of death. Other times we don't. And most, like you only have to experience a painful death once to know what it feels like. And so things like when people are unconscious before dying, so things, cancer, that type of stuff, almost always their soul leaves the body long before death. And so they'll stand in the corner of the room and listen to their loved ones and that sort of stuff. Sometimes when people are unconscious and dying, kind of they seem like they're in pain. Most of the time, that's just the human body and the soul isn't even in there anymore. Also, if people die in like a very kind of death on impact accident, a lot of the time their soul will leave the body like seconds before the impact. So they don't have to feel like the physical pain or the fear. Because again, you only have to feel something once to learn what it feels like. And our souls are very evolved. And so, if somebody has already felt a painful death, that they only do it once. And so a lot of the time, bodies or souls aren't in bodies when they're dying. And sometimes up to a few days before.
If they're unconscious?
Yeah, if they're unconscious.
Okay, that makes sense. My mom died unexpectedly, but I had a dream with her. And she was in a dark hallway in a bed, just very upset, not knowing what was going on. That's why I asked you that, because I swore it was her because she didn't know she was going to die.
Yeah. Well, and it could be a kind of a collective thing of her trying to help you understand that she's now aware of everything. So even though it probably didn't feel like that when she was alive, everything makes sense once you cross over.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So you currently are a psychic medium in practice. Where can people find you or contact you?
I'm on Facebook, on social media. I'm the West Coast medium. There's also a West Coast medium in California. That is not me. I'm Canadian. I do live videos where I answer stuff for free kind of thing because I don't work a ton. And I post all of that on my Facebook page because I'm old and don't know how to use anything else. So yeah, people can find me there. If people want to hear more of my story, I actually wrote a book after the stroke. It came out less than 2 years after. So it's written very simply because I had severe aphasia. So it was not, now that I'm so much further down the road, I'm like, man, I could change a lot. But I also wrote it for people with like ADHD or any type of neurodivergence because I have a hard time reading books now because they're small and close together. My book is like double spaced almost with bigger words so that you can read it. Yeah. So you can find me online.
Are there any last comments you would like to share before we hop off?
I think honestly, especially right now, the world feels so chaotic, but we are here collectively. And every person on this planet, even though you don't know them, is connected to you, to me. We're all connected together. And so I think the next little while, I'm hoping people can just express gratitude, joy, and kindness for everybody around them, because it's, even though I don't like to tune into anything negative in the future, it is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So people are going to need strength and connection to sort of brave this next year and a half, but especially this next 6 months.
Yeah, I feel like the connection is so important, and we forget when the bad things are happening.
Well, and I think everybody who feels, and I do it too, that little judgy sort of personality coming out where we like to judge those who are different than us or whatever it is. Judgment doesn't exist on the other side. It's a very human thing. And anything you judge, I guarantee very soon you will be doing in another life, because that's how it works. We only judge things that we understand, but even if we don't know we understand it. So it's hard to judge somebody for something that I guarantee you have done. Maybe not in this life, but not in the too distant or far future or past.
I love that. Whenever I find myself like nitpicking at my boyfriend, I'm like, the things I don't like about him are things I do. I'm
like this all spiritual person, and I can sure get, especially if people are like super mean. Being psychic is wonderful, but you have to check yourself, because sometimes when people are not nice, I want to go into their soul and their energy and be like, ha, but you did this and this and this, so what do you do? That's not helpful. But I'm human, and humans, when we're hurting, we don't know that we're doing it, but it's easier when other people are hurting, so it doesn't feel as heavy, right? And the world feels heavy right now.
It does, yes. Well, Amber, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and all of your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much for watching Lost and Found. I really hope that this episode resonated with you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. There will be new episodes every Friday, and grief is hard, and you don't have to do it alone. And I love you, and I hope I see you next time.